Do you want to go ahead and jump right in, Marie? How would you like to do this?
Sure. So, yeah, my name's Mahiki King. I am a native Angelino. So Tiki in Los Angeles is very near and dear to my heart. I started in hospitality when I was 16. And I think that is what makes us all better in the Tiki community, is understanding the basics of hospitality. Then in 2004, when I met my husband, John Paul Ballack, we got the Tiki bug hard. Yeah, the first Valentine's Day we had together, he took me to Trader Vic's Beverly Hills.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, it was very, very sweet. We had a bowl, and I decided to have a second cocktail, and we got the dinner to go because I wasn't feeling so good. That was literally my first introduction.
That's super fun.
Yeah. He started going to Beverly Hills Trader Vic's. He was 3 years old the first time he went. So it was very near and dear to our hearts. And that morning, I found Tiki Bob salt and pepper shakers. So that was my Valentine's gift to him. You know.
That's perfect.
Yeah, no. When you go hard, right?
That's very true. Yeah. I know that we have, before we, I forgot, we switched our controls this time around. So if we can bring up my screen, let's see if it'll let me do it. I just want to walk everybody through. Hold on. Oh, also we are on a delay. So you guys, we will see your comments about 10 seconds after you type them, but we are monitoring them. So if you have questions or anything, feel free to put them in the chat box. The way that we usually run things is we go through an introduction, which is, of course, what we're doing right now. The tools that you have available to you are the chat box as well as the questions. So the chat box is for a general discussion. And then we also have an Ask a Question button. This is a fantastic feature that you can actually type your question into this so that we don't lose it. Because at the end of the event, we go through and do a Q&A. So we've got about 30 to 40 minutes of Marie's main presentation, and then we're going to do 15 to 20 minutes of the Tiki O'Clock Q&A. And so that's when we do all of your questions and stuff like that. So moving forward, we will go back to Marie.
Yeah, please ask questions, lots, because I don't want to keep babbling on all day. Yeah, so then right after we got together, John Paul and I, he cold called Tiki Magazine, the original Tiki Magazine. So he got into the first issue, and we got sent on assignment. He got sent on assignment, and of course I went to assist at Jeff Berry's house. So Beach Bum Berry, we started shooting a column, the photos for his column.
That's cool.
At the original Tiki Magazine. And Jeff liked John Paul's work ethic, and I liked being there. So he asked John Paul to shoot the photos for the original Sip and Safari. So my husband actually took the photo of Jeff as a zombie.
Oh, yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So we working together, it's been amazing. So I would go, Jeff would make the drinks in the kitchen, I would assist, and then I would assist John Paul in the photography, and through osmosis, I learned a lot from Jeff.
Yeah.
And then we would sip some rums afterwards. So I learned a little bit about rums there too.
Yep.
And then I was already a bartender in Long Beach, and through that experience, I was able to bring in a little bit of Tiki into the bar that I was working at. Had a tropical theme. It was on the waterfront, so I would make, a lapu lapu. I would bring in my own passion fruit syrup and make that, and Otto's grog with cold brew coffee, and get the Smoke and Menahunis to play. And on Sundays, I was allowed once a month to do a Tiki event at this bar that I was just, a bartender. Then in 2008, they were planning on opening the first new Don the Beachcomber to open in 30 years right down the road from where I was already working. And I got recommended as bar manager.
Oh, that's nice.
That's where it all started. So I went in there pretty much cold. The Sam's Seafood bar Don the Beachcomber in Sunset Beach moved into a vintage tiki place that was called Sam's Seafood. And that bar was built in 1961. So here you go. Here's a bar from 1960. Now I'll make Don the Beachcomber drinks. It was challenging.
Yeah.
But successful. And we created a beautiful thing there. We had a couple of beautiful years. So yeah, I got to do that menu. With my knowledge of rum, I was able to look at some of the vintage recipes and where it would say, Virgin Islands rum. I knew what style that was and could try different flavors and, understanding price and costs and trying to go through all of that. And created the menu. And let's see.
What do you think your favorite thing about Tiki is?
Well,
I
know. I'm asking this question.
It's two parts. I mean, if you're talking about work, for me, it's the creativity. Okay. I love coming up with the palette of flavors that we have in Tiki is amazing. I mean, passion fruit, falernum, pimento dram, and to be able to be creative with that palette, it's like an artist. You get to paint. So every time you make a new drink, you're sketching and you're painting, and it's glorious. As a fan, I think it's the events and the music. More the music, because that's where I've always been a music person. I've always gone to venues. I had my fake ID when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, so I could go to gigs, not to drink. And, my husband, he plays in a bunch of different bands. He's in Tiki Orchestra, Insect Surfers. He plays with Surfer Joe when Surfer Joe plays in the U.S. often. And, to see him on stage, my heart gets all fluttery and, and then I get to do the bar stuff at these events. We get to work together.
That's cool.
So, and then seeing friends, seeing you guys, I only see you at events. I can't just hop over and have a drink with you, Georgie, or I can't. I'd love to go to Trader Sam's Orlando and have a cocktail or Aku Aku, but so these events, it's like
this is about the events. It's so lovely though. Like this is what I'm missing at the moment so much because like it's the Rum family, the Tiki family going around, and every now and then we go to the same events and we see each other. It's like, I miss that a lot.
Yeah, like when we were in Spain, I mean, that wasn't even a Tiki event, but those restaurants and having tapas and wine and sitting around bullshitting and drinking daiquiris till 4 a.m.
And it was Orio's fault, by the way, which he's probably watching at the moment.
I know. It's always his fault. It's always Orio's fault.
It's Spain for you, though. I mean, Spain's that way. Very cool. Okay, so I know that for our presentation today, you've got some history for us, right?
A little bit. I mean, I'm not going to shove it down your throat. I'm sure most of the people watching right now already get it. LA.
No, it's an encyclopedia series.
LA has been the hub of Tiki since before Don the Beachcomber because of the film industry here and all of the South Pacific movies that were being filmed. Going back to the 20s, you had bars like, the Seven Seas in Hollywood Boulevard and the Tropics, which became the Luau when Steve Crane took it over. So we have a long, long, long pedigree here in California and specifically Los Angeles of Tiki. Then of course, Don the Beachcomber opened his first place on McCadden in the 30s, 33, 34. You had Trader Vic's open up one of its flagships in 55. The Luau opened in 53. And then, of course, for Angelinos, besides the Tonga Hut, we're blessed to have the granddaddy of them all, the Tiki Tea. They have the pedigree. They have the provenance. They have been around since 61. We're 3 years older. I have to always mention that we're 3 years older. But they had the pedigree with, Ray Bowen coming from Don the Beachcomber and the cocktails, and it's consistently had those cocktails since 61. Yeah. We at Tonga Hut kind of had that flux up and down of, the de-evolution of Tiki, as people like to call it, and it was a dive bar for a long time. The first time John Paul and I went in there, we were kind of just checking out thrift stores in Tiki in the Valley because LA, it's a different neighborhood than where we live. So it's the northernmost part of Los Angeles. And we walked in the back door, got mad dogs stared at by the bartender and the regulars, walked out the front door and didn't even take a photo. It was like, what are you doing here? And get the hell out. It was not like the Ohana Tiki that Ace and Edwin Libby built in 1958. So, getting to Tonga Hut, that spry young ladies man there is Ace Libby. He is, with his brother, the founder of the Tonga Hut. In the mid-50s, the brothers worked together at a place called Samoa House in Encino. So it's just about a 15-minute drive from Tonga Hut. Edwin was the older brother. He was 20 years Ace's senior, which was very unusual going back to that era, especially. So the two of them. So Ace was born in 1925 in Oakland, and we all know what else was born in Oakland, right? So you could say he kind of had that bug. And he worked at the Tonga Hut and ran it until a few months before he passed away in 97. So there's Ace behind the bar at the Tonga Hut, and you could see behind him there's a water feature, two original water features that we have. And that Lahala that's behind that is still not that Lahala, obviously, but we've replaced it with that same pattern. So we've been able to go down to Oceanic Arts and get that. They worked at the Samoa House together, and then they chose the name Tonga Hut because they figured neither of them would ever get to Tonga. They wanted it, and it kind of makes sense with Samoa House, Tonga Hut, but they both had this affinity for everything South Pacific. Like they lived the lifestyle outside of the bar. It wasn't just a shtick.
Yeah.
So they came in and they got this blank space in this new building that was just built, and they hired an architect, and the architect had a stick with a piece of chalk at the end. And he literally walked through and painted on the floor all the lines exactly as they exist today. So Jupiter, behind you, you can see the booths. The guy came in with that chalk on the floor, booth.
Wow, that's cool.
Bar top, fountain, bathroom, office. Everything is exactly laid out as that guy drew with that chalk on the ground.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we added a couple of things. When we get to some of the more recent photos, I'll explain what we added and what we kept. But we definitely 100% kept it to the theme. We didn't, and if we did add something, it was era centric. So we didn't want to take it out of that late 50s, early 60s style.
I can tell you that whatever you've done, the sofa is really comfortable. So I'm sitting on your sofa at the moment.
You, Georgie, you didn't even know it. Georgie, you're in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
Georgie managed to make it all the way out to the desert.
There you go, yeah, I am.
So that's Ace, and then this lovely lady there with the flower in her hair, that is Sally. That became Ace's second wife.
Okay.
We can go on to the next slide if you'd like. You could see all of these vintage photos of the Tonga Hut.
Oh, I love this. Look at that.
So the large photo in the bottom left, that's Sally again with the sweater over her shoulders and the yellow dress. And then you could see the photo next to it. There was a dance floor. And when the jukebox wasn't playing, it was a piano bar.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So the big drama of the early 60s was what the grandkids told me they referred to as the great wife swap. So the pianist was married to Sally. And he was a drunk. And he fell for Ace's wife. So he took off with Ace's wife, and the pianist's wife, Sally, married Ace.
Oh, how funny. Oh, that's
so it was super like this crazy wife swap.
Like the swingers on speed.
Yeah. So you could see Sally there, and it was Sally's granddaughter, Carrie, who came in 2016. And by then the family had by 97, when Ace died, they forgot about Tonga Hut. They thought it had shut down. They didn't have any hope, because by the 90s, with the de-evolution of Tiki, it was just a beer bar. It was a dive bar. There was no semblance really, except for the water features, which weren't working anymore. All the tikis were there, but it was just a shell. There wasn't the atmosphere and the love that Ace and Edwin had built. So they just kind of forgot about it and moved on. They all still went to Hawaii. They all still lived that aloha lifestyle. One of the sons lives in Hawaii. But yeah, so, and even in the house, in some of the other photos you'll see later on, you could see that we put one of those Malm fireplaces. Carrie came in 2016, and she just started to bawl because she saw that fireplace. She said her grandparents had that in the family room.
Oh.
So we put the fireplace in, but Ace had one in his house.
How funny.
Like, unbeknownst to us.
That's nuts. I love the hair. That's always my favorite part of all the photos.
And the one in the bottom right?
Yes.
See all the cigarette smoke?
Yeah. Yep.
But the booths, we kept the same color on the booths. They're in the exact same spot.
Oh.
The bumpers on the bar, you could see, are green, just like what we kept today. And look at how classy they looked, like all dressed up.
Yep.
And that there was the top row, there's a woman with a TV. That hole is still in the wall there, and we still have a screen that we run vintage movies on.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool.
And the hallway, it's exactly like that, but they kept old photos of their regulars in those window boxes. We've put merch and different artists' work in there, but yeah.
That's fun. That's cool.
So you could definitely see. And then down here, you could see the fountain, the second water feature. Behind the woman with the red hair that's the cocktail server at the bar. In that back corner, there's another lava tiki. We call him today the drooling bastard, because he's just sitting there drooling, poor bastard, for 61 years. 62 now. God, it's 62 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So we can go to the next slide if you like. You could see the drooling bastard today.
Oh, okay. So that's what this guy is here.
Yeah. We call him the drooling bastard. And then that other water feature that we got working again.
Oh, yeah.
It's 4 tiers of a bowl.
That's super.
And you could see the drooling bastard is a large space. We put those rocks in, but before, Carrie told me that they would take plywood and put it over the fountain, and they would have a little food buffet there on special occasions.
Oh, cute. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then they had all those really, I hate to say tacky, but, plastic flowers that they would get from the arts and crafts store that they would put up there. And the granddaughter remembers coming in as a little kid and replenishing the flowers or putting in new ones with grandma.
That's cool.
So it was definitely all a big family business.
Huh. Is this so? With this, you guys took the bastard and turned him into a mug.
Exactly.
So what is this little section here?
That is supposed to be. You could see he drools into a bowl that he's holding. So that's to represent the water in that bowl because he's drooling water out of his mouth.
Is it epoxy? Is it like resin that's been?
No. It's just a little drop of a different color glaze that Mulder put in there.
That's cool.
It's just flat. Yeah.
It's cool.
It's just flat. So yeah, you can see that we kept the same bumpers. Yeah. Sorry,
do you think this the turning of tiki bars or dive bars happened to all the bars in US? Because when I was in Arizona, there was we were looking for a few tiki bars there, and someone told me you gotta go and check on the bar called Bikini something. I don't remember. And I was
Bikini
like,
bar.
I'm coming. Yeah, and I went there, and the place you can see some of the old paintings and statues in there. You could tell that was some amazing tiki bar, and it was just a dive bar serving beers and shots.
Right.
Like you could tell that this bar was beautiful tiki bar, probably long time ago.
Right. Well, the drinks fell out of favor. You know, people didn't want to make them, nor did they want to drink them. And people that through the 70s that continued to go to bars, there wasn't that craft cocktail culture like we have now.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can only spend so much on keeping your upkeep when you're selling a beer for $4 or £5, you know, or dollars. Not even that much. It was probably $2 or $3. And particularly with our place, the brothers' heart just wasn't in it. The neighborhood kind of went down. It was very working class, which is why we stayed open, because of the locals that would come. But at the same time, there were more and more fights. There were biker gangs that were hanging out. It was, someone told me that when Edwin passed away, he kept the bar solo for a while, and then he got a partner named Daryl. So Daryl and he would work 3 months on and 3 months off. And Ace dreaded having to come back to the mainland. He usually spent his time in Hawaii when he was off, or, you know, with the family. He dreaded coming back to work because, you know, there would be a court case he would have to attend because of a fight that broke out, you know, or it just, his passion wasn't there. And it wasn't the tropical ohana that he created in the 50s with his brother, you know. And Daryl drank himself to death pretty much very soon after that and left it to his girlfriend, Mary. And Mary went into debt really fast. When I came in 2012, I still found some IOUs in the back from some customers that were sitting in the bar right then and there.
Wow.
Still, you know, for $500, for $200. So she was taking out loans from her customers just to stay open. So she quickly sold it to this guy, Wayne, who only kept it for 2 years. And he sold it to our current ownership in 2005.
Okay.
So Jeremy Fleener came in 2005. He made his money from rock and roll, and he turned the place into a real punk rock and roll with a dive sort of feel, like a place that the kids wanted to go to again.
Yeah.
And slowly the Tiki files started coming back in, but there wasn't the drink culture. So It was the local community that convinced Jeremy to bring back the cocktails. And he had a bartender named Kelly Riley. She came in and she was making her drinks on her shifts, you know, Saturday afternoon, and a couple events here and there. And then the rest of the time it was, you know, this dive punk rock bar with Fugazi and the Ramones on the jukebox, which we still are. You know, we still have that variety, which is something I love. But, you know, you see Fugazi next to Martin Denny on the jukebox. I don't think there's another place in the world that you could say that.
Do you, when it was kind of run down and was a dive bar, do you think that some of the local customers that were coming in, do you think that they were still customers from back in the day?
100%.
That's cool.
100%.
So they had memories.
Dottie started coming in there. She said right when it opened, and she passed away in 2011.
Yeah.
She was coming in there she would take a bus. She would take a bus, and we would leave a folding chair outside for her so she could sit down outside until we opened, if she got there early.
Well, that's commitment, that.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then Bobby was coming in up until he had a stroke about 1.5 years ago, and he'd been coming in since 1964.